Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. With us on our game day segment this week is basketball and football beat writer Orion Sang from the Detroit Free Press. First, a few of my thoughts to get us going. We are now in that time of year where things are slowing down on the Michigan athletic scene for many of us. Sure, we have the spring sports, but COVID-19 is impacting them now too. If we were not in this pandemic, we would have the spring game to talk about in April, but that isn't going to happen either. I usually spend more time on football during the month of April, but this year we have had the men's and women's basketball teams keeping us locked in on them, which is a good thing. We have heard some news from spring practice, but not much really, which is just as well. I'm fine with letting Jim and his staff do what they do in sort of anonymity. What happens in the fall is what we're really waiting to see. I'm sure in the coming months we'll get back to discussing football, and the closer we get to September, we'll all be jacked up again. As a matter of fact, next week we will be joined by one of our favorites on the show. Steve Lorenz from 24/7 Sports will stop by with an update on recruiting, and I'm sure he'll share his thoughts on what he's heard is going on behind the walls of Fort Schembechler. My guest today says Michigan basketball is in for an interesting offseason. We know we have the number one recruiting class reporting for duty in July, but there are other big questions. Who's staying? Who's leaving? Will we look to the portal for more help? We just don't know. Today we learned that Mike Smith has chosen not to return and will instead pursue a professional career. What a memorable year he gave us, though, so thank you, Mike Smith. Up next on our Game Day segment is beat writer Orion Sang from the Detroit Free Press on this week's edition of The Michigan Man, so stay with us. Back with us on our Game Day segment to talk Michigan basketball and a little bit of football is beat writer Orion Sang from the Detroit Free Press. Great to talk to you, Orion.
Great to talk with you, Mike.
Well, as of Monday, the season is officially over. And Orion, were you surprised at how easily, though, Baylor handled a very good Gonzaga team in the national championship game?
I guess I was surprised by, the ease of victory. I was thinking entering the game, I was curious to see, how Gonzaga was going to guard Baylor's guards, because obviously everyone knows about how good those three starting guards are, and they bring Flagler off the bench. But, Baylor has so many different guys who can create their own shot, and they all shoot well from three. And so going into the game, I was wondering whether Gonzaga would be able to deal with that. And I thought Gonzaga would win. So I guess my ultimate answer was yes, I think they will be able to contain them. We saw that it wasn't very easy, and, Baylor played really well. And I thought they played really well in defense, too. It was a really interesting game to watch, I think, just because it kind of dispelled some notions that I had about Gonzaga just watching that game.
Yeah, it was a very interesting game to watch, very interesting tournament. And I think, we were all happy as college basketball fans that, yes, there were bumps in the road during the season all around the country. But in the end, even with very limited fans in attendance at the NCAA tournament sites, it was still great basketball, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is what we missed out last year, It just doesn't feel the same, when there's no March Madness. And I think it was a great tournament, most upset-filled tournament, I think they said in history, based on the number of double-digit seeds that won and all that. And then, we still got the matchup that everyone was looking forward to, and that COVID had postponed earlier this season between Gonzaga and Baylor. So great tournament. Glad it happened.
Absolutely, and look forward to next season having more bodies in the stands. Should be a big change, but we have a ways to go on that. So for Michigan, season's been over for just about a week now. Already, Michigan fans have, as you know, a lot of questions surrounding next year's team. Probably the one I hear most often is, will Franz Wagner return? Big decision for Franz, but he'll have plenty of expert advice to take in, won't he?
He's improved his NBA draft stock. He's commonly seen as a first-round pick, and I think that's fair. Franz is a really good player. The way he plays, the way he's built, kind of fits with the style of play in the NBA right now. I think he will have no problem finding a home at the next level. I just think he's put himself in a really good position to be taken in the first round based on what he did this season.
Well, you did a good piece in the Detroit Free Press the other day with 5 questions that need to be answered for Michigan basketball in the offseason. The first question was, will there be attrition? And in today's college basketball world, it is now the norm for guys to look elsewhere for playing time, isn't it, Orion?
Yeah, I think you're seeing that this year. The portal is just going crazy right now, going nuts. In this day and age, I think it's just natural for, guys who didn't play that much to maybe want to move on. And this isn't just for, Michigan. This is for, a lot of different schools. I mean, I think when you add that with the transfer rules that everyone thinks are coming, and the ease of being able to play immediately now, I think you're going to see more movement in college basketball than we did before. I think we're seeing that right now, and I don't know. I mean, it makes sense. Guys only have a finite amount of time to play, right? And they want to show what they can do. So I think it makes sense. We're kind of seeing the same thing with football too. So.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's just one of those things. A lot of fans don't like it because this amount of players getting into the portal is something, especially older fans, are not used to. But it is the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it hurts schools, that aren't Michigan more than it hurts schools that are Michigan.
Yeah.
Just because it was already kind of like that, when you have mid-majors who developed these, diamonds in the rough, into really good players, and then, they would blow up, and then they would transfer out, right? Try to get to a bigger school. So I think you're still seeing that phenomenon, and I think it's going to be tougher for those, smaller schools just to deal with that roster turnover because they're not as well equipped to deal with it as, a school like Michigan is. I mean, you look at Michigan, 2 of the biggest contributors on this year's team were transfers. I just think that for schools like you're seeing schools like Kentucky, get into the transfer game too. I mean, it's going to be easier and easier for the high major schools to turn over the rosters in the off season. So even if you do lose a lot of players, it's not a foregone conclusion that you'll be bad the next year because there's going to be so many opportunities to add talent to your roster.
Well, Juwan Howard reminded his seniors after the season that this was a free year by NCAA mandate. So how many choose to come back and how you make room for them is the next question that has to be answered, isn't it, Orion?
Yeah, based on my understanding, they can have as many back as they want because the ones who come back don't count against scholarship limits. But obviously, it goes beyond that. And we both know that they're bringing in a number 1 recruiting class, right? And, when you talk to those recruits, certain promises were made, right? Not that I'm saying he promised a starting spot, but he and coaching staff, probably told these recruits what the roster would look like next year. I'm sure some of these recruits believe that they'll have a chance to earn minutes and that they won't be sitting on the bench all season. So that's something you have to contend with. And then there's guys that might want to move on, guys that have been in college for a while and are older and they've had their fill of college experience and want to move on to the next stage of their life, which is perfectly understandable. So, based on the way he managed the roster last season, I think he did a really good job of it, pivoting from his first plan to his second plan, and I think he will be well equipped to deal with whatever comes his way this offseason.
Well, as you mentioned, Juwan made 2 huge pickups in the portal last year with Shawnee Brown Jr., Mike Smith. And then based on attrition, if there is any, and we just don't know right now, the portal, once again, as we mentioned earlier too, is still a viable option, isn't it?
I believe right now, if you take out the seniors and then you add the freshmen, I believe they're at the full scholarship allotment. But if Franz leaves, I think that opens up spots. And then if there's any other attrition, obviously that would open up more spots too. But it does seem like they will have room to play with, 1 or maybe more scholarships, and they can use a portal. I think that this roster right now is a little different than the roster that they had last season, just in terms of returning production and experience. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect what they do in a portal. They have different needs now. I do think in this day and age and with Michigan's roster situation right now, I think that if they want to add a high-impact transfer, I think the opportunity will be there.
Looking ahead, we have the number 1 recruiting class coming in this year. If all goes well, they should arrive on campus in the summer. When you look at that, the question with that group is how quickly can they get up to speed, and how many do you think are going to be contributing early?
Exactly, yeah. I think he did a really good job in this class of not only accounting for different needs, positional needs, but mixing in a blend of, guys who could be one and done and then guys who could be around for multiple years. And I think that's history has shown that's the way to do it, right? I mean, you look at schools like Gonzaga, Baylor, Villanova, Virginia. I mean, a lot of schools in recent years have had success with guys who have been around for multiple seasons in college, and they haven't followed, the strict one-and-done blueprints. I think that's one reason why this class, I think highly of it. I think that there's guys who will play right away, like you mentioned. I mean, you look at a guy like Caleb Houston. When you watch him play, he just seems college ready. I mean, I talk about this a lot, and I feel like this goes under the radar. The ability to know what to do on a court and where to be, the basketball IQ, I think that aspect of basketball is somewhat underrated nowadays. I think one of the reasons why Franz Wagner was so good immediately last season was because he just knew what to do when he was on the court. He wasn't putting in 20 points or hitting like 5 threes immediately, right? But he was immediately an upgrade as a starter, as a true freshman, because of his high basketball IQ. I think Caleb Houston is a similar prospect in that he seems very mature. He knows where to be. He's a good team defender. He can shoot really well, and I think that's a big selling point too. And I think he will step in and play a lot next season. Look at guys like Diabate. I hope I didn't pronounce that incorrectly. And guys like Frankie Collins. I mean, there's going to be a need for some of those guys. Diabate could play backup center. He could play the 4. He's pretty versatile. He looks like he can be a really impactful defender with his length and his athleticism. And then, you have a guy like Frankie Collins, who could be a high-level creator. We don't know when he will emerge as one. It's hard for freshman point guards to be really good, but maybe he can play like an Andre Curbelo type role off the bench for Michigan. It's a good class. I think you're going to see multiple guys play right away.
We still have the questions surrounding the program that will develop over the coming weeks and months as far as attrition, the portal and all. And I guess that would lead to the next question, or the answer to the next question, which is how many will Juwan bring in with the class of 2022? Really, we don't have any idea on that right now, do we?
The scholarship situation right now in college basketball, I mean, it's hard to look past even this year. But I do think there'll be based on what we've seen, it won't be a small class. I think the days of taking, 1 or 2 players, that's probably over. I think you're probably going to see at least 3 or 4, maybe even more. It looks like it's going to be another good class. I haven't really done too much or dove too much into who they're looking good for, who they're after. But I have watched some of the guys they've offered, and there's a lot of good players out there that they're chasing. Based on how he recruited this season, I think they'll probably put together another class. I know his other son is in the 2023 class. He looks like a high-level prospect, so should be another good class from Michigan. At this point, I mean, he's kind of got it rolling now. I think from this point forward, you're going to be seeing consistent high-level recruiting from him.
And while we do have questions, whatever happens in the off-season, I think we can safely say next season's team should have plenty of depth and talent, so it's just going to be a question of how it all comes together, isn't it, Orion?
I guess the question is, what happens in the off-season? Like, can they elevate the ceiling of the team? Like, the baseline of the team, I think, is going to be pretty solid. I think they have a pretty solid foundation, but you don't want to be banking on having too many freshmen be high-level contributors, right? Because it's never a sure thing. I think to bring back, 1 or 2 seniors and then maybe add a transfer, I think, they'll be in great shape going into next season.
Well, Isaiah Livers, from what I understand, had foot surgery, and from what I'm reading, he's out of action for 6 months. How much will that impact his being drafted, Orion?
I'm not sure. I don't think it helps. It really sucks for him because not only did he miss the postseason, but now he's going to miss the NBA pre-draft process, which we all know is very important. You work out with teams. The NBA Combine is back on this year. I think he would have had a chance to impress there, and now it's gone, taken away from him. He's coming off 2 seasons where he missed a lot of time due to injuries. I think he's going to have a lot to prove. It sucks. It's just a really tough situation for him. That's just the underlying thing. He didn't get a chance to finish his senior season. It's going to be tough sledding now that he's gone for 6 months.
Well, if that injury would not have occurred, I hadn't been paying too much attention to any of the mock draft boards. Was he considered a possible first-round pick?
I didn't see him as a possible first-round pick, which I guess makes sense. I saw him, as a potential second-round pick, and I think there's a role for him. I think Isaiah is a really talented shooter. I think he displayed that he can shoot out on the move. He's really good spotting up, catch and shoot guy. I don't think they'll be asking to shoot off the dribble in the NBA, but I mean, when you can shoot really well, there's always going to be a role for you. And he has size. He's 6'7", 230. I mean, you could say that he can play, the wing in the NBA. My question now would be, what NBA teams think of his injury history, because he does have a somewhat lengthy history now.
Well, one more basketball question before we get to some football questions, Orion. Does it surprise you how quickly Juwan Howard has adapted and thrived in only 2 years as a college head coach?
Yeah, it definitely surprises me. I mean, people who know him best, I guess, say they aren't surprised. I mean, he's just been a high-level coach in every facet of the game. His scheme, his roster building, roster construction, the recruiting. I mean, everything that people, I guess, were curious to see what he would do, what he would handle, how he would adapt. I mean, he's crushed it in his first 2 seasons. I mean, I don't think there's any way around it.
Oh, absolutely. I think we all agree with that. I mean, he's just amazing to me, though. I mean, there were so many people that wondered as he came from the NBA and he wasn't a head coach. I think all those questions after, let's say, almost 2 years have been put to rest, haven't they?
Looking back on it, in hindsight, I guess that, like the bigger questions were probably about how he would adapt to the college game. I think being an NBA guy, an NBA assistant for a well-respected organization, I think the baseline for his coaching should have always been high. Because he learned from the best. He coached one of the best teams, or one of the most consistent teams that's well-run, organized, and he was there for a while. They liked him. I guess the biggest question, was how would a guy who had never been at the college level, how would he adapt to the roster building aspect of it, the recruiting side of it? And he's done really well. I mean, he's been able to leverage some connections he had through his sons, but I mean, he has ties all over the country. He's dipped into areas that Michigan wasn't really prominent in before. He's shown that he can handle the transfer portal. He's shown that he can adapt to it. I mean, he got Mike Smith and Shawnee Brown, and those two guys were huge parts of this year's team. So that part of it is just fascinating, just the ability to come from the NBA where you don't have that stuff, and to be able to just get a good grasp of it immediately. I mean, I think that's the most interesting part of it, all of this.
Fully agree with that. A couple of football questions before we let you get away, Orion. And I know with basketball, you haven't had much time or as much as you'd like to focus on anything football, but there really hasn't been much news coming out of spring camp. And one of the questions I get asked a lot is, what areas do I think need the most improvement with Michigan football? And my answer is always the same. It's everything. After what we saw last year, there is so much that needs to be fixed, and I don't think they can accomplish all of that during spring ball or summer workouts. My expectations for this team are really not very high this year. I expect them to be better, but I'm not saying Big Ten championship contender. Unfortunately, I think in a lot of ways, Orion, this is a rebuilding year, isn't it?
It seems that way. New defense. It's a pretty different situation for the last time they had a new defense. I mean, the last time they were installing a new defense, they were bringing back the majority of the team that was very good in 2016. I lean towards what you're saying. I agree with you. I do think it'll be a rebuilding year. I think that Michigan is probably better equipped to bounce back than a lot of other teams, just because they are a top 20 team when it comes to recruiting the past few years, top 25 team at least. They've put together some solid classes, so this isn't like a rebuild it's taking place at Illinois. I think that they could bounce back and get to over 500 pretty quickly. I just don't know if they have the ceiling to be a title contender. I think there are other teams that are better equipped, better players, more experienced, that aren't learning a new defense. I think those teams are probably ahead of Michigan in the pecking order right now. But you're looking for improvement every year. I mean, it's year 7, so it feels weird to be saying this. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that they hit the reset button. I think it was needed. I think they needed some change. I think what was going on before wasn't working. I think we all saw that. So I guess we have to see how this plays out, because I do think everyone would agree that they needed to change some things up.
A lot of these questions we are asking, that fans are asking, can't be answered until next year. So we just have to be patient, and that's very hard. But a final question for you that really is about the fans. Orion, season ticket holders received their renewal notices last week, and I think have until April 22nd to pay. I know the athletic department would like a full big house next fall, but really, realistically, I should say, at this point, we are a long way from knowing just how many bodies are going to be in seats, aren't we?
Yeah. I don't think we'll know until closer to the season, but I do know that there will be at least some fans.
Yeah.
Just an improvement over what we had this past season. I don't know. I mean, it was weird having a fully, basically empty stadium, and I don't know how weird it will be if there's only 25% or 50% capacity. They'll try to get as many as possible, obviously. I just think it's probably too early to call. Their hope is that they can get full capacity. I mean, I think everyone across the country would hope for that. We'll see. I mean, college basketball, college football, they're the same in that it just is weird not having people in the stand. Even when there are some fans, it's still weird when it's just 25% capacity. It just doesn't feel the same.
Very, very strange. It will be different this fall. It's just going to be to what degree. So we have 5 months to go, roughly, before the season starts. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed. Here with us today on our Game Day segment, talking Michigan basketball and some football, has been beat writer Orion Sang from the Detroit Free Press. I know you need some rest after a long basketball season, Orion, so we've appreciated you coming on each time we've asked, and we look forward to talking football, maybe even some more Michigan hoops in the not-too-distant future.
Always good to talk with you, Mike.
On Quick Hits today, football season ticket holders will have to pay up by April 22nd. It might be months before we learn how many fans will be allowed in the Big House this season, or what Plan B is if limitations are placed on attendance. I don't envy the athletic department having to figure out how they are going to work this out. I'm sure they have considered every conceivable situation and will be ready to deal with it. The athletic department announced on Wednesday a pair of non-conference home games against New Mexico and Central Michigan, slated for the 2025 football season. The Wolverines will host New Mexico in the season opener, and 2 weeks later welcome Central Michigan to the Big House. In between those two games, we will be traveling to Norman to meet up with the Sooners. Number 23 ranked softball, 13-3 overall, will end its 1-week pause and resume competition with a 4-game road series at Ohio State this weekend in Columbus. The teams will square off at 4 p.m. on Friday before playing a 1 p.m. doubleheader on Saturday and a 1 p.m. series finale on Sunday. All 4 games will be streamed live on Big Ten Network Plus. Michigan leads the nation with a 0.87 team earned run average. Individually, junior right-handed pitcher Alex Duraco ranks 5th nationally with a 0.49 ERA, while senior lefty Megan Bobian is 15th with a 0.94 ERA. The Wolverines have earned shutouts in 7 of their 16 games this season. U of M previously led the nation in 2008 when All-Americans Nicky Nemitz and Jordan Taylor combined for a 0.88 ERA. Number 25 baseball returns home for the first time in 3 weeks as the Wolverines play host to Ohio State in a 3-game series from Friday through Sunday. Friday and Saturday's games will be streamed live on the Big Ten Network Plus, while Sunday's game will be broadcast live on ESPN2. We are 13-6 heading into this week's action. Next week we get back to football. Steve Lorenz from 24/7 Sports will join me with a recruiting update and any news as spring practice winds down. So make sure you join us. That will do it for another week, though. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go Blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!